So now we move on to an interesting interview with Medea Benjamin. She is one of the co-founders of Code Pink, and I believe she's calling for a quicker withdrawal from Afghanistan. Medea, welcome to the Young Turks.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
We appreciate you coming on. Before we get into Afghanistan, I got to ask you a real quick question because I was just really curious about it. It says in your bio that you named yourself Medea. Well, why did you choose that name?
You know, I can barely remember. I'm 57 right now, and that happened when I was 18. So I was reading the Greek plays. I was a student. I loved Greek mythology, and I thought it sounded like a cool name.
All right. Okay. Fascinating. Just was curious. All right. Now let's go on to Afghanistan. So here's the thing, right? A lot of the people on the right would say people in favor of withdrawal are saying, let's pull out all our troops right now. I want to give you a chance to counter that, say, really, what's your actual plan? What would you like to do in Afghanistan if you had your way?
Well, it's kind of similar to Iraq, except we don't want to leave behind a residual force that is tens of thousands of soldiers. But in the case of Iraq, we talked about an exit strategy, a timeline for withdrawal, a plan that would incorporate talks and diplomacy and getting the neighbors involved. And it's similar in the case of Afghanistan. We don't think there's a military solution. We're aware of our history, and we've seen that you can put in hundreds of thousands of troops like the Russians did and still not, quote, win. Al-Qaeda's moved on to Pakistan, so what are we doing in Afghanistan anyway? And we think it's time for some kind of negotiations, talks, diplomacy, and a timeline for withdrawal.
Well, Medea, I think you're probably aware that I'm in favor of staying for now, right? And so, to answer one of your questions, one of the reasons I'm in favor of it is because I think right now I see Obama doing a fairly decent job of the strategy of squeezing Al-Qaeda in between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The Pakistani troops are coming up north, our troops are going down south, whereas if we leave Afghanistan, that allows Al-Qaeda to move from Pakistan, where they're being squeezed right now, back into Afghanistan and basically have free reign. I'm concerned about that. Can you see that concern?
Well, I feel like we are the best recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is really an ideology, and Al-Qaeda members exist in places around the world. We're not talking about invading Germany, or we're not talking about invading the U.S. where there were Al-Qaeda cells. I think we have to look at Al-Qaeda as individuals, that we have to have a strong intelligence network, and we have to have a strong defense here at home. But I don't think that our presence in Afghanistan is getting at Al-Qaeda. In fact, I think it's just the opposite. I think it's recruiting for Al-Qaeda.
Well, Medea,
the Taliban, I don't like them either, but I don't like the warlords that are part of the Karzai government, and the Karzai government is extremely corrupt. And Afghanistan is a very complex society, and I don't think we can solve its problems.
Well, there's two components there. One, on the Al-Qaeda front. Look, I read Tom Hayden's article in the San Francisco Chronicle saying, hey, wait a minute, now we've been attacked by terrorists that were based in Germany or Yemen. It's not like we're going to attack Yemen or Germany to go get them. That's a great point. I hear you. But we do have unfinished business with a couple of gentlemen in northern Pakistan right now. And I think that, militarily speaking, their strategy of squeezing them in is a good strategy. And I'd hate to leave Afghanistan without... No. Wait a minute, that's not fair. Bush didn't do that at all. His strategy in Afghanistan was nearly useless. He did nothing there. And in Pakistan, he let Musharraf sit there and do a peace deal with those guys. So we've only tried this for 8 months since Obama's been in charge.
Well, I think you yourself talked about gentlemen in Pakistan. So what are we doing in Afghanistan?
Because if we're not in Afghanistan, they will easily cross the border and hang out in Afghanistan, where then we'll never get them.
Well, that's what we talk about, a negotiated solution, getting the neighbors of the region involved. The neighbors don't want Al-Qaeda to overrun either Pakistan or Afghanistan. Look, what we're doing right now is a lot of aerial attacks. Every time we do an aerial bombardment, especially with those drones, we attack civilians, we kill civilians, we incur more hatred among the people.
That's true. That's true,
so
but
we're just
Medea,
in this vicious cycle of violence that will never end.
we're talking to Medea Benjamin. She's one of the co-founders of Code Pink. Medea, that's very true, but again, let's give credit where credit is due here. I didn't love the pick of General McChrystal for leading the Afghanistan effort, but he has gone out of his way to limit that. And he said our priority is to win the hearts and minds, and and we're going to be a lot more careful about civilian strikes, and they have been. Now, there was one disastrous one, but it was from Germany and not from U.S. troops.
There's constant disasters, and in fact, what Petraeus said is that you need an 80-20 solution, 80 being diplomatic development and 20 being military. And right now, 95% of the money we have for Afghanistan is for the military. We even have a U.S. ambassador who is a former lieutenant general, served 30 years in the military, including 2 tours in Afghanistan. He's got a military mindset. We have no diplomacy going on, and we can't do economic development as long as the military is predominant.
Well, here's the thing. Look, when you say it should be 80-20, actually you're quoting Petraeus. And I agree with you. I agree with Petraeus. I wish that, if our primary goals were to build schools, et cetera, build an infrastructure there, I think we would be much better served off, because that's how you win hearts and minds, and then you have to fight less people. But I don't think we can do that without having boots on the ground. Do you think that if we withdraw, we could, what do? We just send them money and hope they spend it on the right thing? That doesn't seem realistic.
Well, I say that we withdraw as part of an exit strategy, and that's what we are supposed to be doing in the case of Iraq, which means you put the government on notice that you're only going to be there for X amount of time, and you work backwards, and you start the talks going. You get the more moderate elements of the Taliban. You get the neighbors involved. You get the NATO countries involved, who, by the way, are just going to pull out because their people don't want them stuck in this war, and it's going to be more and more on the burden of the United States. In the end, wars end by negotiations most of the time, and this is how this one is going to end. So why not do it now as opposed to 10 or 20 years from now?
Well, that brings us to our final point. If I was the president, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and what I would do is my first priority would be to get the Al-Qaeda guys, and then say, hey, look, here we're going to leave in 3 years or 4 years or 2 years or whatever that number is, and as we're leaving, we're going to pour more and more investment into your infrastructure. Now, I know some people in Congress will hate that, but I think that's what we have to do if we're going to go and invade a country. But that brings us to our final question. If we don't do that stuff and we'll leave and then the Taliban comes back in charge, that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And if it means an effort to try to stop those guys in a smart and effective way, and Obama's only had 8 months to do it in a smart and effective way, then I'm willing to take that. Aren't you concerned about leaving the Taliban in charge of at least large portions of Afghanistan?
I'm very concerned about the Taliban because I care about the women of Afghanistan, but I'm also concerned about the warlords and the drug lords and the thieves and the rogues who are part of the government of Karzai that is seen by its own people as extremely corrupt, illegitimate, and has people embedded in it that have a terrible history of oppression of women. So the issue of women in Afghanistan is unfortunately going to take a long time to solve, and it's going to have to come from the women of Afghanistan. I think we should listen to somebody like Malalai Joya, who was a member of parliament, ran for president, considered the bravest woman in Afghanistan. She says the U.S. troops do more harm than good. They should leave and let the people of Afghanistan figure out the government they want, let the women come together, work together, support their efforts, support schools for girls. Maybe even we could send in international peacekeeping forces to protect girls' schools, but not the military.
All right. Well, I have a lot to say on that, but we're out of time, so I'm going to let you have the last word there and leave it right there. And Medea Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And our website is codepinkalert.org.
Codepinkalert.org. Thank you so much.